Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 1. Will be present about Karl Marx theory of history. In this topic, we will discuss about Marx, how he developed the theory of history by relating it to the early ideas of Darwin, George Hegel, and Ludwig Feuerbach. Okay, before we start the presentation, let me introduce the group member first. Firstly, I'm Sheikh Mohammed Hassan with metric number 258206. Subarni Mugi Anak Perempuan Subramaniam with metric number 285169. Me, Juliza binti Zainal Abidin with metric number 278513. And lastly, Tirendraj Azwin Anak Lelaki Rawindaran with metric number 271914. Okay, I will start the presentation with the introduction. The early socialist critics of classical economics and their objection to capitalism and its alleged evil was moral. They have come up with the moderate way, which is moderate socialism groups such as utopian and Christian socialism claim to represent everybody's interest, which is employer and working class. In this moderate way, they did not think that violence revolution should be used to change the capitalist system. So they wish to modify classical liberalism and not overturn the system that support it. Next, Karl Marx, who is the leader of Marxian socialism, dismissed that approach. This is because Karl Marx believed that socialism would not be forthcoming until the conditions of the working class deteriorated to the point of open rebellion. Capitalism, according to him, had internal contradictions that would ensure its eventual demise. Then Marx articulated a comprehensive critique of capitalism as well as dialectical process by which capitalism will be overthrown. This can be seen in theory of history and law of motion. Marx believed that social revolution was unavoidable within advanced capitalist country. That's all from the introduction, and let's move to the next part. Next, I will continue the presentation with biographical details of Karl Marx. Karl Marx was born in Prussia, son of a successful Jewish lawyer. Karl Marx studied at University of Bonn, Berlin and Jena, which is law, history and philosophy course. He received his PhD from University of Jena at 23 years old, and because of his radicalism, university positions were close to him. Karl Marx turned into journalism and was exiled from Germany and went to Paris, which is he studied French socialism and English political economy. Karl Marx met his collaborator and financial supporter, which is Friedrich Engels, in Paris, and then wrote the manifesto of the Communist Party in year 1848. Karl Marx then exited to London in year 1849 and spent the remainder of his life there. Next, here are some other details about Karl Marx. Karl Marx was tormented by illness, extreme poverty, and the death of the three of his children in infancy, but still he continued to study, write, and organize. Karl Marx wrote many articles in New York Tribune, and which is the payment helped him to succeed. In year 1867, he published the first volume of his magnum opus, which is Capital, Das Kapital. Karl Marx died on 14 March, he was buried at Highgate Cemetery in London. After Marx's death, Engels edited his manuscript and published Volume 2 and Volume 3 of his work. Then, after Engels died, the remaining manuscripts were left to the leading Marxists of the time, which is Karl Kautsky, who published another 3 volumes of Marx writing, under the title Theories of Surplus Value. That's all for the part of biographical details of Karl Marx. Next, let me continue the presentation with intellectual influence. Marx developed his theory of history by relating it to the ideas from these three persons, which is Charles Darwin, who developed the theory of evolution and natural selection, George Hegel, dialectical process, and Ludwig Feuerbach, which is philosophical materialism. Okay, before we discuss further about this topic, let me talk a little bit about biography of Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is an English naturalist, geologist, and biologist, which is best known for his contributions to evolution theory and natural selection process. Charles Darwin studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh in year 1825, and he sailed to the Galapagos Islands in 1831 on a 5 year voyage aboard the HMS. He wrote the famous book, which is On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection in year 1859. So that's all from me, and I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
So we have seen the biography of Charles Darwin presented by one of our members in previous video. So here I would like to add some more. According to his famous Origin of Species book, in the struggle for existence, favorable variation is tended to be preserved, while unfavorable one is destroyed. Therefore, we have was something he called the natural selection. Natural selection is that species that successfully adapted to meet the changing requirement of their natural habitat thrive. So those who adapt to the change of the environment of their natural habitat, they thrived, while others, they get extinct. So those who get extinct are those who fail to evolve and produce. Therefore, they become extinct. The other point we have is the evolution of species. The surviving species become adaptive and most responsive to the change of their natural habitat. So as long as become responsive to their changing life habitat, environmental ecosystem, they evolve. Therefore, in this slide, I would like to show an example of the process of natural selection. So we do have an example in this slide. A population of mice has moved to a new area where the rocks are very dark. Due to natural genetic variation, some mice are black while others are thin. So we wanted to know how this environment influences to this species, those who survive and get evolved, and those who don't survive and gets eaten by others and gets extinct. So we will see in this example many of the theories developed by Charles Darwin. So some mice are eaten by birds. Tan mice are more visible to predatory birds than black mice. Thus, tan mice are eaten at higher frequency than black mice. Only the surviving mice reach the producing age and produce an offspring. Therefore, mice reproduce given next generation. Because black mice had a higher chance of leaving offspring than tan mice, the next generation contain a higher fraction of black mice than the previous. And so here we see the process of natural selection, We have, in this example, we have yellow butterfly and brown butterfly. So, and there is a genetic variation within the population which can be inherited. So, and in competition of a production of offspring leads a competition for survival. So, as their number is very large, and each species is competing, is struggling for survival. So, and there comes adaptations. Those who adapt will survive, those who don't will not. They get destroyed or eaten by other predators. So we see here individuals with beneficial adaptations are more likely to survive, to pass on their genetics. We see the brown butterfly, the offspring, as they less likely visible to the predators. Birds here, for example, they are more likely to survive, while the yellow butterfly, which is more likely visible to the birds, are eaten by the birds. So we see uh, the, the brown butterfly. So I would like to say about the influence of Charles Darwin on Karl Marx in his developing of the theory of history. Darwin's ideas immediately attracted the interest of Karl Marx, who was also trying to bring revolution to society with his own work. His initial comments show that Marx agreed to take into greater consideration on Darwin's thesis about the evolution of living beings. So Karl Marx was parallel between Darwin's thoughts. Karl Marx sees a parallel between Darwin's thoughts on the theory of evolution and natural selection and his own political economics theory. As a result, Darwin affected Marx by confirming Marx's belief that in dynamic rather than static analysis is the path to real comprehension of society. Contemporary economic organizations like current biological species are the product of past developments, past work did by Charles Darwin. And in this slide, I would like to present about George Hegel. George Hegel, his complete name is George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He was born on 27th August 1770. He studied theology at Tübingen University. He worked as a professor in various German universities, where he became acquainted with Romanticism, to which Hegelianism would be responsive. So he was a German philosophy who has developed a lot of ideas, which have hugely influenced Karl Marx, which we will later see in the following slides. With the continuation of George Hegel, he became a professor at the University of Heidelberg, professor of philosophy at the University of Berlin 1818 until his death in 1831. Like earlier philosophers, Hegel tried to keep philosophy systematic with a logical starting point. Hegel's work is normally categorized as German idealism, and he is considered specifically to be an absolute idealist. And Hegel was influenced by Karl Marx, and Hegel's work in philosophy of history would influence Karl Marx. So we can see the chronology here that he was influenced by Immanuel Kant, and his work also influenced Karl Marx. In this slide, I would like to present the Hegel's dialectical process. So here in this slide, we will see thesis, antithesis, and thesis. So the essence is two persons, for example, each has different idea. Each have a claim or an idea. The other one has another contradictory idea, and the synthesis, which is the combination of the two. So first, for example, someone puts forth a claim. So this is called thesis. Then someone else puts forth another contradictory claim. So this becomes or is called antithesis. So a third party forms a synthesis, which accommodates the best of both points of view. So we can see here what synthesis, antithesis, which is the opposite or the contradictory view of the thesis, and synthesis, which accommodates the best of the two. So Hegel's favorite example was that thesis of being and the antithesis of non-being or nothing, which was resolved in the synthesis of becoming. So here we see the dialectical process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. In this slide, we will see a more chart of Hegel's dialectical process. So it is just an extension of the previous example we had seen. So here the thesis, the original idea, the antithesis, argument challenging the thesis, the original idea, synthesis, new argument exists, new thesis by resolving the contradiction between the thesis and antithesis. In this slide, it's also related to the Hegel's dialectical process. We had seen, we see here like before, the thesis, the original idea, the antithesis, the idea that challenges the thesis, the idea that challenges the original idea, and also synthesis, the new idea that accommodates the both of the two ideas, the thesis and antithesis. So when we see here, we see again antithesis, which itself challenges the synthesis, which in this stage becomes a new thesis. And that antithesis and the synthesis forms synthesis, a new thesis that accommodates the best of the two. Then we will have antithesis of we have a new thesis that challenges the new thesis, the new synthesis that we currently have. The two will form synthesis. So it is a process wherever we reach a good idea, a synthesis, there will be another idea that challenges that idea. So therefore, the synthesis we have, when there is another idea that challenges, it becomes a new thesis. Then we will have synthesis. In this slide, I would like to present about the influence of George Hegel on Karl Marx's theory of history. Marx's view of history, which came to be called historical materialism, is influenced by Hegel's claim that reality and history should be viewed dialectically. Therefore, and also Karl Marx also supported Hegel's concept of dialectical process in history. For example, thesis, the original idea, antithesis, the opposite idea that challenges the original idea, and the synthesis, a new thesis that results from the interaction of new idea. So this is supported by Karl Marx. The contradiction between the old ideas and the new notion, for example, gave rise to six phases in Karl Marx's theory of history: primitive communism, slavery, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and communism. So here we see how George Hegel influenced the work of Karl Marx.
Everyone, my name is Saramigi Subramanian, my card ID 285169. So today we are going to see about Ludwig Anders von Feuerbach. As all of you know, he is one of the Karl Marx theory's influencer. So now let's get to know him. He is a German philosopher and anthropologist. He was born on July 28, 1804 at Landshut, Bavaria. He abandoned theological studies to study philosophy for 2 years in Berlin under George Hergel. He even received doctorate at the University of Erlangen in 1828. His famous book, The Essence of Christianity, published in 1890, was a criticism of Christianity that impacted generations of succeeding philosophers, including Karl Marx. Okay, now let's take a look at the theory that has been introduced by Feuerbach, which is philosophical materialism. Materialism refers to an emphasis on matter, real things, or the world of reality as contrasted to the realm of idealism. So here he's trying to say that materialism is about the reality of the world, and it's nothing about the idealism or the imagination that we have. Next point is Feuerbach distinguished between reality and fantasy in his book Essence of Christianity. So in his book Essence of Christianity, he has mentioned about the difference between reality and fantasy. Feuerbach argued that God is really a creation of man and that the qualities people attribute to God are really qualities of humanity. Meaning, he's trying to say that God are really imagination of mankind, and the qualities of God are same as the quality of we human. Individuals create unreal deities and then worship these deities as if they were supernatural or divine, even though these gods in reality are the product of human imagination. So what he's trying to say here is, as I previously mentioned, God is just the imagination of humans, and they worship the qualities of human as if they are supernatural. Next point, to Feuerbach, history consists of the process through which people come to know and accept reality through use of their sense of perceptions. According to Feuerbach, religion which brings unreal happiness for people need to be abolished to get real happiness. He's trying to say that the religion that brings unhappiness to us should be destroyed in order to get happiness. Okay, now let's see how Ludwig Feuerbach's influence on Karl Marx's idea in developing his theory of history. Karl Marx has substituted Hegel's idealism by accepting Ludwig Feuerbach's philosophical materialism. He even agreed with the views of Feuerbach. The first thing that he agrees on, which is the focus should be on materialism, a focus on matter, real things, or the world of reality as opposed to the realm of ideas. And the second point is imagination, such as religion, must be eliminated in order to achieve real happiness. Now let's take a look at Marx's theory of history. Marx has developed his theory of history by combining Darwin's theory of evolution and natural selection, Hegel's dialectic, and also Feuerbach's materialism. According to Marx, the forces of production (FOP) establish a set of relations of production (ROP) that sustain them in every historical age, meaning the FOP produces the ROP. History, according to Marx, is a process in which the static ROP eventually clashes with the dynamic FOP, meaning the ROP and FOP has a relationship. Conflict transforms the system, allowing for the greater growth of the FOP through the new ROP. The superstructure enhances the static ROP. Examples of ROP are the social institutions, political structure, and governing machinery of a society. It represents the interests of the ruling class. The elite's dominance is defended by superstructure, which justifies how the base, FOP and ROP functions. According to Marx, in every historical era, the forces of production produces a set of relation of production ROP that support them. So, FOP produces ROP, forms a mode of production. Forces of production and relations of production are incompatible. In other words, you can say they are contradict. Forces of production are a combination of technology, capital, and labor skill level, whereas relation of production is the combinations of rules, social relationships among people, and also property relation. Forces of production is dynamic and can be changed through time, whereas relation of production is static and maintained by superstructure. All elements of the superstructure maintain the status quo. Marx argued that the superstructure reflects the ruling class's interest. The mechanism for overthrowing old societies is the class conflict. According to Marx, history is a process in which the static relation of production, ROP, eventually conflict with the dynamic force of production, which is FOP. Conflict transforms the system, allowing for greater development of FOP through new ROP, which is antithesis. This is the triangle that explains the relationship between forces of production FOP, relation of production ROP, and also the superstructure. So let's start from the base, which includes force of production and also relation of production. This FOP and ROP is everything needed to produce a society's wealth. FOP and ROP can be shaped or formed into a superstructure. The superstructure includes art, philosophy, religion, literature, music, and political thought. These are the things that don't have to do with the production of society's wealth. Superstructure helps to maintain the FOP and ROP. Moving on to the next part, which is theory of history. There are 6 stages of society development that has been introduced by Karl Marx. Karl Marx saw society evolving through 6 stages, which are primitive communism, slavery, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and also communism. Now let's take a look at the first stage, which is primitive communism. There's no antagonistic classes, no exploitation, and no class struggles during this stage. People shared land ownership and worked together to eke out a poor life from nature. Workers couldn't regularly produce a surplus beyond what they and their dependents needed since the production efficiency was so poor. Slavery and exploitation were thus unthinkable as they required toilers to produce more than they needed to survive at this stage. Before the coming of the Europeans, Native American society was an example of primitive communism. In summary, at this stage, there's no any kind of development, and also people could only fulfill their daily needs. So that's all from me. Thank you. Now I'll pass the presentation to the next presenter.
In a time of great change and progress, the efficiency of production soared to unprecedented heights, surpassing mere subsistence. As workers gained the ability to produce beyond the basic needs, a new era emerged, bringing forth unforeseen consequences. Slavery, once a dominant institution, awakened with new found profitability, casting a dark shadow upon society. Exploitation reared its ugly head as enslaved individuals were subjected to the relentless pursuit of profit, igniting flames of social unrest. Amidst the turmoil, the ownership of land assumed remarkable importance, particularly during the rapid growth of agriculture. Land became a symbol of power and influence, fueling divisions and conflicts that would shape the course of history. A higher development of production forces of society, but eventually it became a barrier to further progress. This is because slaves were unmotivated workers and slaves tore societies apart. Moving on to stage 3, feudalism. Marx stated that feudalism stage is unique because of exploitation of the serf is most clearly visible. In the feudal system, serfs were allowed to work a few days per week on the land assigned to them, but were first forced to work the other days on the lord's land. Feudalism brought a higher development of society's forces of production. The system finally limited further progress and was overthrown and superseded by capitalism. For example, the king owned all the land in the country and made the laws. He gave an area of land called a fief to rich lords and nobles. In return, the nobles agreed to support the king with supply of soldiers and horses for his army. The nobles gave some land to the soldiers. In return, these soldiers fought for the nobles and the kings. And the peasants, on the other hand, worked on the land for the nobles for the knights. Social transformations. Capitalism emerged as the dominant economic system replacing feudalism. The capitalist society was characterized by division of two main groups, the proletariats and capitalists. The primary objective of capitalists was the maximum profits, which often entailed paying workers as little as possible. and capitalists strategically invested their wealth to generate even more money, expanding their enterprises' influence. Meanwhile, the proletariats, the working class, became entirely dependent on the wages of their livelihoods. Workers relied on their wages to meet their basic needs and sustain their lives, creating a profound power dynamic between the capitalist and the worker. Within the framework of capitalism, the struggle for fair wages and better working conditions become pivotal in the ongoing battle between labor and capital. Techniques of production become increasingly concentrated and centralized. System of private ownership of capital becomes a barrier. Unemployment increases, causes the worker to revolt. Working class success to overthrow the capitalist. Moving on to stage 5, which is socialism. Socialism is a stage between capitalism and communism. It builds up upon the previous system, nationalizing the means of production, but not making everyone equal. According to Marx, capitalism faces struggles between and contradictions that will inevitably cause it to be overthrown and replaced by socialism, according to the theory of history laws of motion. The working class in overthrowing the bourgeois state will set up its own proletarian dictatorship to destroy the bourgeois class. Under socialism, the profit motive and the free market were eliminated as the main guiding forces of the economy. In the pursuit of societal equality, and liberation, communism emerges as an extreme form of socialism, aiming to establish a classless, moneyless, and stateless society. In the communist ideology, there exists no oppressive class, eradicating the stark divisions that plague previous social systems. By removing the concept of classes, communism seeks to eliminate the inherent conflicts and struggles that arise from social inequality. Within a communist society, the oppressive class, with its accompanying privileges and control, becomes obsolete. Simultaneously, the oppressed class, burdened by the weight of exploitation and marginalization, finds liberation. And in conclusion, Marx's theory of history provides a framework for analyzing human society and laws of its development. Marx, Marx was influenced by Darwin, who wrote the theory of evolution and natural selection, Hegel, and Feuerbach. For Marx's history, for Marx, history is a process through which the static relations of production come into eventual conflict with the dynamic forces of production (FOP). Conflict revolutionizes the system so that the new relations of production permit the higher development of forces of production. Marx saw society evolving through 6 stages, and the mechanism for overthrowing all societies in each stage is the class conflict. In every stage, conflict arose between the oppressing class and the oppressed class.